ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We start 304 Sunday, November the 11th, 2018, the Gregorian calendar, which agrees with the second of Rabi' al-Awwal, the second of just the month on the Hijri calendar, on the Islamic calendar, which is the second of Rabi' al-Awwal, Aam 1440, the second of Rabi' al-Awwal, the year of 1440 after the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we continue in our book entitled Buloogh Al-Maraam, Buloogh Al-Maraam meaning obtaining the objective. I think that's how they translate it. Obtaining the objective. Buloogh Al-Maraam, by the great illustrious Imam Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, who died 852 after the hijrah or the migration of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. We return back to Kitab al-Nikah. We continue in the hadith or rather we continue in the chapter of what they call Ishrat al-Nisa, or how to live with women in kindness, living with them in kindness, which is Bab Ishrat al-Nisa. The chapter, all of it is pertaining to nikah, of marriage, but in the actual chapter, there's another subtopic, if you want to say, for lack of better words, Bab Ishrat al-Nisa, of living and treating, or living with women in kindness, and treating them with kindness. As the last part of the hadith, or we actually started the hadith of Abu Hurairah, and the last part of it says, وَاسْتَوْسُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. He said, live with the women and treat them in kindness. For verily they were created from the rib. And the most crooked part of it in the rib is the upper part. And if you go to try to straighten it out, you will break it. And if you leave it alone, it will continue to be crooked. So treat the women in kindness. And the hadith is muttafaqun alayh, wa-lafdh al-Bukhari. Wa-li-Muslim, as we know, فَإِذَا اسْتَمْتَعْتَ بِهَا اسْتَمْتَعْتَ بِهَا وَبِهَا عِوَجٍ. And if you enjoy her, or enjoy with her, meaning the marriage, then you will enjoy her and she has a crookedness. And if you go to straighten it out, you will break her, and breaking her is divorcing her. As we started this lesson, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa wal Akhawat, for lack of better words, if you want to say, this hadith, of course, enlightens our sisters, but also likewise it enlightens our brothers to know the nature of women and how they've been created, and to also likewise know the reality of what takes place because of the condition of the state of how Allah created women in general. And Allah Ta'ala did not make any exception. Now, this is the affair of all women, whether they be from a different background, a different ethnicity, a different country, a different culture, a different color. It doesn't matter. This is the nature of women without any exception. So this is generalized for every woman, no matter where they come from. This is their nature. And this is what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ gave the reality, so we can know their circumstance to be more patient. Especially, we'll talk about in this country, especially in these circumstances of our brothers and sisters here. Not only did the Messenger of Allah teach us that our women were created with some type of deficiency, but we add on to that, allowing them to wear different hats and personalities. So not only do you add on to their natural state of being in that type of deficiency, is not a deficiency of deficiency of what, depending on how we will understand it, and which will give enlightenment. That the deficiency is that gentleness, but that gentleness is utilized in a way that suits her condition and her state. For women were naturally created to be feminine, created to have light type of movements, which could be either utilized if a man treats them properly, or it could be rendered as a deficiency, as we know, if you treat her improperly. Of course, the deficiency is, like we'll talk about, as the Messenger of Allah said, that as far as her religion, she spends certain days without fasting nor praying. And that's the deficiency of the religion. And the deficiency as far as in her creation is, he says that in regards to her testimony, it being equivalent, or two of them being equivalent to one man. For the woman in her nature, the message of Allah is teaching us. And our brothers in this society, not only does a woman have to take on her natural, innate disposition, how she was created, but we add on to that more pressures, as we'll talk about, inshallah. As you'll find that a lot of our brothers, not only does a woman have to put up with herself being a fitna. I'm sure women can tell you of what they go through, of mood swings and what they go through. And then they add on to that, we add a lot of pressure onto them where they have to wear different hats. Where they have to take care of 5 children, take care of 2 children, take care of 4 children. Then they have to work. Then they have to make sure you're straight. Then make sure your clothes is ironed. Then they have to dress properly. Then they have to go out the house. Then they have to wear an overgarment. Then they have to make sure their face is properly covered, because their husband doesn't want them to go out the house with their face covered. And then we know that they're trying to complement the bills and wearing all these different personalities and different hats. So keep in mind, brothers, not only this is her natural disposition, but we add all these pressures onto her on top of that. To let you know that, don't you think, brothers, that we should be a little bit more merciful to our sisters? Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? So not only that this is how the message of Allah gave the reality, rather you'll find that brothers take advantage of this weakness. You're just a woman. All right, now, you're just a man, and you're supposed to pay all the bills. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? So if that's the case, then we need to be more merciful with each other and be patient with each other. So that's the case in which we'll discuss in a minute, inshallah. So, the message of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, he gave that and laid down the reality. We know that the message of Allah, is another narration before I start to elaborate on the other one. I want to read these narrations quickly, which gives a little bit more enlightenment and give us a little bit more details. فمن حق النساء على أزواجهن ما أخرجه أبو داود وصححه الشيخ الألباني, which comes on the authority of Bahz ibn Hakim. قال قلت, O Messenger of Allah, نساؤنا ما نأتي منهن وما نذر. O Messenger of Allah, our women, he says, what can we come as far as being intimate or intimacy? What can we enter upon, meaning as far as the intimacy, and what do we leave off? So the Messenger of Allah said, go to your harvest, meaning her private part. Not the anus, but the private part, in a manner that you will. The point of reference that's connected to this hadith, this is what the Messenger of Allah said. وَأَطْعِمْهَا إِذَا طَعِمْتَ وَاكْسُهَا إِذَا اكْتَسَيْتَ. Feed her if you feed yourself, and clothe her with you clothe yourself. Now listen what he goes on to say. Do not uglify the face. وَلَا تُقَبِّحِ الْوَجْهِ وَلَا تَضْرِبْ. Do not uglify the face. And the uglifying the face breaks down to 2 categories, as we'll discuss. And do not hit her. Do not strike her. As we know, hitting in the face is prohibited in all circumstances. Doesn't matter whether a woman is disobedient or obedient. Striking her in the face is impermissible in all circumstances. As we'll discuss, inshallah. قال الأمير الصنعاني رحمه Allah in his book called At-Tanwir, he said, when the Messenger of Allah said, وَأَطْعِمْهَا إِذَا طَعِمْتَ, feed her if you feed yourself, or feed her if you eat. Listen to what he says, Al-Amir al-San'ani, when he's explaining this hadith. He says that is not a condition. Now listen to what he says. This is not a condition in feeding her, that when you feed her, when you eat, you have to give her the exact same thing of what you eat for yourself. For example, a man will say, well, I'm eating a burger, so what if she doesn't want that? You get what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. What was it took, and he says, وَأَنَّهُ لَا يُطْعِمُهَا إِلَّا إِذَا طَعِمْ. He said that the meaning shouldn't be understood here, that she feeds her if he was just to eat. He said, rather the message of Allah here, he said, بَلْ ذَلِكَ مُبَالَغَةٌ فِي الْإِجَابِ. However, the message of Allah here was mentioning this word here, or this wording. He says to put emphasis in the obligation of it. Is it clear what I'm saying? So it's not just so say, okay, I eat a meal. Here, sister, take that. No. Message of Allah was mentioning this here, this wording in this narration. He said to put high emphasis on the obligation of it. To put high emphasis on the obligation of it. Meaning, وَأَنَّهُ كَمَا يُطْعِمُ نَفْسَهُ يُطْعِمُهَا وَمِثْلُهُ قَوْلُهُ وَكْسُهَا مِنَ الْكِسْوَةِ. And similar to that, likewise, we'd say the same ruling. That you dress her, likewise. That if you was to what? Would you clothe yourself? Meaning, he's just putting emphasis on this obligation. Putting high emphasis on this obligation. So, all these narrations, brothers, in its actuality, this affair is in the hands of who, everyone? In the men. The men are responsible. They're responsible for these affairs. So in regards to her spending all these matters, these are from her affairs. And to also put in perspective how Islam honored a woman. And it did not come to oppress her. And our women need to recognize that likewise. That this hadith also, the Messenger of Allah is removing the affairs of Jahiliyyah. Meaning how women used to be treated before Islam. For verily we know Jahiliyyah, that before Islam, that women used to be harmed. As we know from the ways of before Islam, that they used to be buried alive. They used to be buried alive. They used to be utilized and looked at as just mere pleasure. That's it. That they were just utilized for one to satisfy his desires. No more, no less. They would bury them alive, and they would press them. They would press them in inheritance. Because the men used to, during the times of before Islam, they used to oppress women by prohibiting and holding them back from inheriting any type of money. And they used to say that inheritance only was for the men that used to ride the steeds or be in battles, or that would sacrifice their lives, meaning in battle and in war. And those who sacrifice their lives, they're the ones that deserve inheritance. So they used to hold back inheritance from women in order to what? Or they used to justify them holding women from benefiting from an inheritance because of these reasons that we mentioned. And you would think that justifiably that's in its proper place. That men have to go out in war. Men have to go out and sacrifice. Men have to go out and take on the toils and all the different difficulties of life as far as the spending or the earning and the sustenance and seeking it. So they used to utilize this as a way to what? Justify them oppressing the women. Now, if we didn't have the revelation of Allah, you would think that was correct. But Allah Ta'ala still said that no, women still have what? They still have their right in inheritance and also attaining wealth and keeping their wealth. So to keep in perspective that Islam did not come to oppress women. Rather, it came them to honor them and allow them to also likewise benefit, whether it be religiously or financially or what have you. So it says in this regard that before Islam, Likewise, the women were just merely used for satisfying desires and wearing nice jewelry and decoration. That's it. Or them being oppressed as far as being utilized for prostitution, all these different things, all these different affairs that we see now. But it's just in a more decorated, embellished manner. You'll find that women now, they do it willingly for some money, where they don't realize that they're being actually what? Dishonored. But they do it in the name of freedom here. But not realizing that it's all what? It's still being taken advantage of, and still being dishonored, and also likewise making a woman like a man is dishonoring a woman. Making a woman like a man is dishonoring her, because you're putting her in a position that does not agree with the natural disposition of how Allah created her. So when you take something out of its proper place, in actuality, that is considered oppression. As we know, also likewise before Islam, that was what the message of Allah in this hadith was removing. He's saying, treat the woman kindly. Treat the woman kindly. Getting back to now what we just discussed in the hadith of Bahz ibn Hakim, when the message of Allah said, do not uglify the face. Do not uglify or vilify the face. What does he mean by that? He said, وَلَا تُقَبِّحِ الْوَجْهِ لَا تُقَبِّحِ الْوَجْهِ. Meaning, number one, do not invoke against her by saying, for example, قَبَّحَ اللَّهُ وَجْهَكَ. May Allah uglify your face. Meaning by dua against her. Or by saying, Ya qabihat al-wajh. Or you saying, oh ugly woman. Or you ugly woman. Or oh one who's ugly in the face. That's also prohibited. To say this to a woman. It is prohibited. Ya qabihat al-wajh. That's prohibited. And for all the more reason, brothers, that you should abstain from saying to your woman, oh fat girl. Oh fat, you obese. That's the reason why I want to get married again. All these other statements are unmanly. This is not manly to speak like this to a woman. It's not the way of a man. You fat woman. Or you ugly. You overweight. That's why I want to get married again. No. You want to get married again because you're a man. That's how Allah created you. No matter whether she had the best body in the dunya, you still will want another one. That's just how Allah created men. And that's the reality. And I'm sure every man in here can vouch for that. I don't care if a woman had the smallest stomach and had the best waistline of an hourglass figure in the dunya. A man still will want to get married. So don't utilize and beat down her self-esteem and her physical stature to now justify why you want to get married again. Or beat her down psychologically or mentally, or now destroy her self-esteem because you want to get married again. No, you want to get married again because that's how Allah created you. No more, no less. So you see in this hadith, the message of Allah prohibited what? To say this. Why? Because it goes against the chapter, the heading of the chapter. What, everyone? By saying this to a woman, this is considered what they call su'ul ishra. Bad, or living with a woman, was contradicting the aim of the chapter, which is what? Living with a woman in kindness. Rather, this is living with a woman in what is evil and mistreatment. It was considered mistreatment. And this is what they call su'ul ishra. The chapter is called about husnul ishra. Good dealings and living with her and coexisting with her in kindness. This type of behavior and treatment is what? It's the opposite of that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Then the message of Allah said, don't strike her. La tadrib. We know that has some details in it, as we'll discuss in a minute. But the initial hukum is, you are not supposed to strike a woman at all. In her face. The only type of strike that has been an exception is what we're about to mention in a couple of minutes. And even that strike is not the first alternative. It's the last alternative. And even if it's the last alternative, it's not supposed to leave a mark at all. Not a broken bone, some blood spilling out, not a swelling, not a bruise, not a cut, not a broken arm. That's not the meaning of the hadith. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So now, uglifying the face of a woman, كالقول. Oh, we already just discussed that. Alhamdulillah, I ain't got to mention that again. So this is to show what, everyone? That we know that the origin of the woman, likewise, as Ahl Ilm even mentioned in the past, that Allah has mentioned in His book about their origin. That the innate disposition of a woman is that she's what? She's gentle. She's soft. This is what is considered what? Femininity, right, everyone? A woman is feminine. She's not masculine. She's feminine. This is her origin. This is her natural disposition. She's gentle. She's kind. She's that balance that men need. Men, we're masculine. Men, we have what? We're a little bit more stern in certain affairs. That's our natural disposition of strength and masculinity and being a man and things like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His infinite mercy gave us our balance. That's why women naturally are supposed to be naturally what? Gentle. But we know that our society and how our men treat our women takes them out of that to make them masculine. So they're not allowed to be a lady. They're allowed now, they have to be now more like a man. But however, the initial affair of how Allah created a woman is with femininity, to be feminine, to be soft, to be gentle. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, أَوَمَن يُنَشَّأُ فِي الْحِلْيَةِ وَهُوَ فِي الْخِصَامِ غَيْرِ مُبِينٍ. He says, is it the one that has been raised to decorate herself? So Allah is saying that in the innate disposition of a woman is that what? She likes to decorate herself. She likes to look pretty. She likes to look feminine. She likes to look nice. She likes to look and like attention from her husband, for a man to look at her, her husband to look at her, to look attractive and gentle. That's the origin of a woman. And Allah has mentioned this in His book, in the ayah. So this is not from what? You'll even find Ahl Ilm from the Ibn Uthaymeen, he even says this. He said, فَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْمُرُوءَةِ وَلَا مِنَ الرُّجُولَةِ وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْإِنصَافِ تَقْبِيحِ وَجْهِهَا وَكَسْرِ نَفْسِيَّتِهَا. He said it is not from muru'ah, from honor. And what they call, muru'ah is more like chivalry, which is like honor. And it's not from masculinity, rujula, being a man. He said that a person will uglify the face of his wife by all the different meanings we just mentioned. Saying, oh, ugly face, or you fat, or something where he says, or breaking down her self-esteem. With kasri nafsiyatiha, breaking down her esteem. Breaking it down. The other hadith, as we know, the message of Allah, and I wanted to bring some benefits in which Muhammad bin Ad in Ethiopia had mentioned about this, but I didn't get the chance to do it. There's another narration that comes in Nasa'i, which also aids this narration, what we're discussing now. What comes in the hadith of Tirmidhi, in Nasa'i, wa Ibn Majah. On the authority of Amr bin al-Ahwas, also the great Imam al-Albani declared it to be Hasan. This is Sahih al-Jami'. That the message of Allah said in the farewell pilgrimage, في خطبة الوداع, he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, ألا واستوصوا بالنساء خيرا. So you notice that it's similar to this narration in your books, right, everyone? He says that the message of Allah said in the farewell pilgrimage, he says, ألا واستوصوا بالنساء خيرا. He says, I have highly emphasized to treat the women in kindness. For verily, now listen to this narration. Now no one get offended, I'm going to explain it. Once I explain it, it'll become clear. They are similar to captives with you. Don't worry, I'm explaining. هُنَّ عَوَانٌ عِنْدَكُمْ لَيْسَ تَمْلِكُونَ مِنْهُنَّ شَيْئًا. Then the Messenger of Allah gave more details after he said this. You do not own anything of them other than that. So you don't own her money. Her money is her money. Her stuff is her stuff. Except that if she comes with a fahishatin mubayyina. Except that she comes with some type of disobedience. Kafahisha mubayyina. Initially, linguistically, it means if she comes with a clear type of abomination that she did with her private part, meaning like adultery or something. But the meaning of it here, Ahl Ilm clarify, they said the meaning of fahisha here in this context is disobedience. That she comes with clear disobedience. So listen when it comes. So it goes on to say, فَإِنْ فَعَلْنَا فَهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Then the Messenger of Allah gave steps that if she goes out of disobedience, meaning because you're fulfilling your obligation as a man first. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That you're fulfilling your obligations as a man first. And if she goes out of obedience, then take these steps. So the Messenger of Allah now is giving steps. After you have fulfilled her rights, brothers, so keep in mind, you paying all her bills, you're doing all this. Are you doing that? Keep these questions in your mind. That's why AbdurRazzaaq is always flagged. Probably could keep these lessons, don't let these lessons be heard. Like, he said, now you're fulfilling the obligations of her rights. This is what you're doing as a man. You're fulfilling her rights. You're paying all her bills. You're doing this. Right? You're taking care of her. You're treating her kindly as a man. Treating her softly, treating her kindly, treating her with what? Kindness, being courteous, respectable, all these matters. You're doing this. If she now goes out of obedience, then these steps the Messenger of Allah gives. So number one is فَهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Firstly, number one is what? Advise her. Advise her. Not holler and scream, raising your voice, calling her out of her name. Advise her. If she does not do that, then boycott her in the bedroom. Boycott her in the bedroom, meaning separate yourself from her in the bedroom. Meaning not being intimate with her. And notice that I said in the beginning, after a man has fulfilled his obligations with her. Because this can only have an impact, brothers, if you're a good man who's doing what you're supposed to do. Other than that, it will give the opposite effect. Because women will be like, I'm glad you separated the bed. Get out. Is it clear what I'm saying? So the Messenger of Allah laid down to what? The origin is that you're a good man handling your business. Because if you're a good man handling your business, this will impact her. But if you're a man that's not, you're not fulfilling your obligations, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, this is going to have what? A little effect, if not at all. Rather, she would probably be happy that you separated the bed from her. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? She might be like, go ahead, lay on the couch. Ooh, I get a breather. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And see, the sisters know what I'm talking about it because they know it's the truth. Because there's situations out there like that where sisters will be like, whoo, alhamdulillah, I got to look at you. Go ahead. But she might not say that verbally in her mind. She was like, I'm glad he never would separate the bed. Is it clear what I'm saying? So if you want that impact to be in the manner how the Messenger of Allah said it here, you're a man doing the best that you can. You're fulfilling your responsibilities. You're treating her kindly. You're doing the best that you can as a man. Then she will have respect. So when the point where if this happens, it will have a positive what? Impact. It will have a positive impact. Because she knows she has respect for you. As a man, she respects you. And the fact that you're doing this to her, it really affects her because she loves you. So that, being that the case, is going to what? Be a step for rectification of the situation. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? If she, now the Messenger of Allah gave the third step. He says, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ ضَرْبًا غَيْرَ مُبَرِّحٍ. That if she does not do that, then this is the last step. He says, strike her a strike that does not leave a mark. It does not leave a mark. فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ عَلَى نِسَائِكُمْ حَقًّا وَلِنِسَائِكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ حَقًّا, to the end of it. So then the Messenger of Allah says, and if she returns back to compliance, meaning she has rectified her affairs, she returns to doing what she's supposed to do, do not seek against her a way or evil way. Meaning do not continue to what? Treat her in this manner. Stop. Return and resume what is of good treatment, of what she deserves. And all of that is mentioned in the ayah. As we know, brothers and sisters, as we know, it's mentioned in the ayah, which is in Surah An-Nisa. Where Allah Ta'ala says in this book clearly, and Allah lays down the origin, that the men, true men, that fulfill their obligations as men, listen to the ayah as we know. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله واللاتي تخافون نشوزهن فعظوهن واهجروهن في المضاجع واضربوهن فإن أطعنكم فلا تبغوا عليهن سبيلا إن الله كان عليا كبيرا. As Allah Ta'ala says in His book, that the men are qawwamuna over the women. They have been raised a level over the women. What's the reason? Of what Allah has preferred some over others. And what they spend out of their wealth. Meaning that they are truly a what? A man fulfilling his responsibilities and obligations. To the best of his ability. Right, everyone? So Allah has laid down the origin. So if you're a good man, you're doing what you're supposed to do to the best of your ability. The best of what you're trying to do. And you're treating her with kindness. You're doing all you're supposed to do. Then Allah Ta'ala says, after in the ayah, فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. He said, then the salihat, the righteous women, are qanitat, they're obedient. And he said they guard in their husband's absence. If they protect in their husband's absence. And those who you fear, marital discord. Didn't Allah Ta'ala goes on to say, وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنْ فَعِذُوهُنْ. And those who you're afraid of, marital discord would take place, then exhort them, meaning advise them, redirect them. Advise them. Then if they don't do that, then Allah makes another step, which is what? Then boycott them in the bedroom. Then it says as the last alternative, what everyone? Then hit them. It's the last alternative. And we know that that strike is what everyone? Is the last option. And also on top of that, does not leave a what? Does not leave a mark. And keep in mind, we said hitting and striking in the face is prohibited in all cases. There is no exception. Is that clear, everyone? There's no exception to that. You cannot strike, you can't even strike an animal in the face. The how more than a woman? You can't even strike an animal in the face. The how much so of a woman? There's no exception to the rule. You cannot strike anyone in the face. Man, male, female, even an animal. Because we know that the most honorable part of the body of a human being is what, everyone? The face. So that is not struck in any circumstance. So he goes on to say. So then the message of Allah, when he said, verily they're like captives with you. What does that mean? What does that mean? He says, فَإِنَّهَا أَنَّ الزَّوْجَ عِنْدَ زَوْجِهَا بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْأَسِيرِ عند من أسره لأنه يملكها وإذا كان يملكها فهي كالأسير عنده ثم بين صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه لا حق لنا أن نضربهن إلا إذا أتينا بفاحشة. So he just said that the meaning of captive, meaning that now she's as if you're responsible for her and you now what? It's as if now you're the owner of her, meaning that you're responsible for her. You're responsible. So the message of Allah ﷺ has made this clear. Except that you do not own anything of their what? Their wealth, anything in the least. So a woman is allowed to keep her wealth. And she does not have to use it on you. I don't know how much of this lectures we keep having with these brothers and sisters. She does not owe you anything. She does not have to spend her wealth on you. She does not have to buy food for you. That's why, brothers, when you have a wife that does these fairs for you, you need to be more grateful and be more humble. Because now it seems as we live in days and times where men, they put in their minds that these women have to do. She has to go buy the food. She has to go now do this. She has to purchase and buy you clothes. She has to buy you and get your hair cut. She has to do all these affairs for you. No, she does not. She does not have to do any of these. These are not her responsibility. This is not, now is this to now hinder our sisters from helping good brothers out? No, it's not. But it's to put in the perspective and the mind of our brothers to be more what? Be more grateful. That's all. Because we know, respectfully, if a good woman recognizes a good man, and a good man recognizes a good woman, if you're a man that's fulfilling your responsibilities and doing what you're supposed to do, and she knows that you're doing the best that you can, naturally she will start to aid you because she knows you're a good person. And I know you just don't have it. But I'm going to look out for you. We're going to work together. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say to brothers, or I'm not saying to sisters, because I don't want anyone to now go. Next week, I hear AbdurRazzaaq said, now woman, the man, we got to help the husband. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that to put in the perspective of the mind of brothers to be more grateful. No more, no less. Because we allow our sisters, because the message of Allah is telling us Allah created them to be gentle. That's the type of weakness that the Prophet ﷺ was trying to emphasize here. And on top of that, that gentleness, and that gentleness of her being feminine, we add more hardships on her society. Because now we know our sisters have to go out in society wearing what? An overhead abaya, or you want her to wear niqab. You want her to take care of her 5 children, take care of all her children, take care of your children. She got to go outside with an overgarment on. She has all these pressures of society on her. She has to take care of you, make sure that you're fed, make sure the kids are fed, make sure you're straight, make sure the house is straight. All these affairs, all these different hats she got to wear. But and take consideration, the origin of how Allah created her was not to be like this. And she still what? Tolerates it. Then on top of that, a woman got to deal with her hormones during the month. Then she got to deal with her monthly cycle during the month. All that's hardships and pressures that we need to put in the mind of all of them. And this is not directed towards you guys specifically. All of us to be somewhat more merciful. That's all. That's what I'm trying to say. So now you see like the Ahl Ilm that they're going to say, وَلَا ينبغي كثرة التعنيف واللوم فضلا عن استعمال الشدة بالهجر والضرب لأدنى سبب. This is what Ahl Ilm goes on to say, Shaykh Uthaymeen. He says, it is not befitting كثرة التعنيف, using an abundance of sternness and violence. He said, this is not befitting. And always being blameworthy, blaming her. And likewise, same thing with women. Blaming your husband, pointing the finger, being blameworthy. He said, besides using shiddah, besides using shiddah. And shiddah means like what? It being very harsh. Or that you use this type of boycotting in the bed or hitting just for a little small reason. That's not befitting for a man either. Some little small little what? Thing you don't like, khalas, I'm going to start these 3 steps with her. No. Is that also clear, brothers? It's like you waiting for her to do something wrong so I can now utilize this. No, that's not the reason. Or that's not the mere reason. He says, لِأَدْنَى sabab. Or for any mistake that might emanate from her. Or because she forgot to do something. Or she might have came up short. He says, rather what's befitting is to overlook and forgive. That's the origin of how we're supposed to be. To overlook and pardon and forgive. Except in an affair that has to be dealt with. Except in an affair that has to be what? Dealt with. Then, of course, then these steps have to be what? Have to be utilized. And it says, and also likewise, nor is it necessary that it has to reach the level where he has to what? Strike her either. It doesn't have to reach that level. There's a narration also likewise, which is in Sunnah Abi Dawood, which Shaykh al-Albani also authenticated on the authority of Iyas ibn Abdullah ibn Abi Dhubab. That also another narration where the Messenger of Allah said, do not strike the female servants of Allah. Do not hit them. وَلَا تَضْرِبُوا إِمَاءَ اللَّهِ. Do not strike the female servants of Allah. Ima Allah. Ima, as we know, is the opposite of abd or ama. The plural is ima. Do not strike ima Allah. فجاء عمر إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, ذَئِرْنَا النِّسَاء إلى أزواجهن. So it says, Umar came to the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, he saw a Messenger of Allah. He says, now women are they starting to now go against us. They're starting to now come up short in our rights. So upon this, the Messenger of Allah gave these 3 steps. Upon that. So then he gave these 3 steps, and what we just said on, you have to repeat it again. But that was one of the reasons why they say that the ayah in this manner was revealed, because of this. That was one of the reasons. Because of the origin what the Messenger of Allah mentioned, and then after that, these 3 steps came down. طيب. Also, alhamdulillah, we already did those 3 conditions. Alhamdulillah, we don't have to repeat that. طيب. So what we mentioned is these conditions, right, everyone? This also shows that one has to be patient, not to resort for hitting and violence and uprisings in our household, but however, solving problems in a manner that's befitting, with respect and honor and nobility. So that when marital discord does take place, that is handled with exhortation, meaning by redirecting or redirecting her, or advising her and reminding her of Allah. Then after that is the boycottement of the bed, or the separation of the bedroom, what have you. As we know, that is more preferable, and that is a better choice and alternative for rectifying this affair. And not to resort to striking, except what, everyone, is the last option, and even the hit or the strike has to be what? In which it does not leave a mark. So is it clear, everyone? G. Because I don't want nobody going around saying God says permissible to strike a woman, and someone else says other things. طيب. Now, so then we go on to mention and say also, there's another hadith which is al-Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah, and it is basically it's almost the same as this one, but it has a slight different wording. If everyone looks in their books, it's similar, but it's a little slightly different. I mean, alhamdulillah, I ain't got to mention that because it's the same almost, basically. But the wording in this hadith, Al-Amir al-San'ani, in his book called Tanwir, which is the Sharh of Jami' al-Saghir, he gives a nice explanation to this narration in your books, the hadith of Abu Hurairah. I'm going to just give that, and inshallah we'll keep it moving. طيب. He says in this regard, when the Messenger of Allah said, Istawsu bin nisa khayra, ay is'alul wasiyya fihin, min ba'tikum li ba', he says, now I'm giving you the advice and accept the advice as it pertains to them, meaning the women. And give it to yourselves. بِحَيْثُ يَكُنْ كُلٌّ مِنْكُمْ or كُلُّ مِنْكُمْ يُوصِي غَيْرَهُ. Meaning that if they hear this advice, then let them advise the other men with this same advice. That the Messenger of Allah had sought for men to have excellence with them and have patience upon their evil, or what takes place. وَاسْأَلُوا مَا أَنفُسِكُمْ ذَلِكَ. He says that also that it's what? It's been highly advised and requested that you have patience. As we talk about the narrations that's going to come in your books, in Buloogh Al-Maram, there's going to be narrations where the Messenger, that Allah himself said, that Allah in his book has mentioned, that you are going to marry, if you marry a woman, you're going to marry something that might, well, more than likely, irritate you. That's going to happen. Allah himself had mentioned that, which we're going to talk about, inshallah. It's coming. Don't worry. Everything, ya ma'ashal ikhwa wal akhawat, does not have to resort in disrespect. And it does not have to resort in ignorance and use of verbal abuse. All these things are not from the affairs of Islam. I don't know where we get this from. This is from before we were Muslim. That we deal in affairs in an ignorant, violent manner or disrespectful manner. That is from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. How we used to verbally abuse women and women used to verbally abuse men. Calling them out of their name, disrespect, and we think that raising our voices is going to solve the problem. As we know, raising our voices is going to agitate and make the problem what? Worse. So in this hadith, the Messenger of Allah is saying that this is something that you're going to see. To emphasize that you need to be what? More patient. Because of how she was created from the rib. And like we said, this type of crookedness is that what? That gentleness, the femininity that she has. That how Allah created her with. Because we know that Hawa, or Adam when Allah created his mate, which is Hawa, he created her so he can find comfort in her, relaxation in her, not the opposite. So the origin of the woman is that, what is that crookedness, brothers and sisters? I want every other men to understand. What is the crookedness? What is it? That femininity, that gentleness, that softness. Because right now, if a woman was a man like you, would you be able to enjoy her? Oh, in these days and times, who knows? But at any rate, the origin is, in these times that we're in, that if everything was correct and people had the right mindset, the origin is that the origin is that a man will want what's a turn on is what? That femininity. That's what's a turn on with a man. That gentleness, that softness, that kindness. That's what's what? That what makes you to want to be with her. When a man sees now the origin, if it was all correct, alhamdulillah, is that if a man now, if everything was correct, we lived in a sound society, that if a man now was to see a woman acting like a man similar to him, how would a man want to be with her? He would leave her off. I detest this. You acting like a man and talk a deep voice with a man and being rough like a man and trying to have, and all these affairs that turns a man off. So that type of crookedness is that what? That gentleness, that kindness. And that which is in actuality, that type of crookedness suits her innate, that natural disposition as a woman. It suits her because it's a benefit for the man. But how you utilize it as a man to bring that, enhance that crookedness which could be beneficial for you, goes back to you, the man. Goes back to you where you now can enhance it and bring the good out of her. Whereas you do it with what? Kind words. Because we know how Allah Ta'ala has created the woman, as even Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned. We mentioned this in an explanation last week, where he said that a woman by natural disposition, she likes those kind words. She likes that kind treatment. She likes that you are attracted to her and that you will talk to her in a very, very nice, respectable manner. They like that. It's a turn on. They want that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? That's what they want. They want those kind words. They like that. We know that women, they will what? They will be pleased by those nice kind words that you give them. Even if you're getting on their nerves. Or if you ever, even if something takes place of a little disagreement. That they see that you're what? That you're tactful in what you say. And they're also likewise, they see that you're tolerating. That you have a lot of what? Forbearment. They see that. And we know that of what? Even it's sad to say that we know even before Islam. How is it that you'll see men that now walking down the street with beautiful women and you think in your mind he's not attractive. How did he get her? How? It's because he carried himself as a man. He carried himself as a man. Not raising his voice and cursing and verbal abuse. Listening to her, understanding her problems, trying to what? Not complaining that much. All those are masculine features. Not complaining a lot. Always not, and listening with a listening ear. All those things are what? Masculine. That's what turns on women. So that's the reason why you'll find that men, like we said, men walk down the street, you think that is what? Not attractive. How he get her? How did that happen? You get what I'm saying, everyone? Because he knows how to conduct himself like a man. How to use kind words. So that is the type of that is the iwaj, or the crookedness that the Messenger of Allah is mentioning here. That she's effeminate. So if she's feminine, that means she has some type of what? Softness that you can easily what? Break her by the opposite of that, which is what, everyone? By using harsh words. As we know, harsh words and breaking her down mentally and physically, breaking her down in her mental state. Physical state will what? Those hard words will definitely impact her. As we know that just like a woman can be easily pleased with kind words, they can also be emotionally broken with what? Harsh words. To the point where we know that even harsh words might have more of an impact more than you striking her. How many do we know that of our experiences as men, that a woman might forgive you for you striking her, which we're not condoning. But those words you might have said to her on that particular day, she'll remember that 10 years from later. Remember you said that to me? Am I right or wrong? How hard words can even hurt and it can affect. There's a poetry even says that. There's a poetry where it says in the poetry, in the Arabic, in some of the Arab they used to say poetry, they say جراحات السنان لها التئام ولا يلتام ما جرح اللسان. That's the poetry. He said جراحات السنان لها التئام ولا يلتام ما جرح اللسان. They say that the wounds of weapons, but they're talking about of strikes, physically. He says they can perhaps heal. He said, but healing of the strikes of the tongue may not. It may not. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala has created them where they could be what? They could be, just like as a woman could be easily pleased by kind words, they could be easily what? Broken by what? Harsh words. And that comes in another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Messenger of Allah said in the hadith of Anjasha, which we'll talk about inshallah, where he said, Rifqan bil qararir. Have gentleness with the fragile vessels. So that's the statement from the Messenger of Allah. He said, Rifqan bil qararir. Have gentleness with the women, with the fragile vessels, meaning they can be shattered easily. Is it clear now I'm saying, everyone? This is from what we're saying, and we're mentioning that the Messenger of Allah increases our iman to know that the Messenger of Allah was not commanding to oppress women. And for those who are listening from the non-Muslims, this is who the Messenger of Allah is. And we know that the Messenger of Allah was the best example. He was the best example as a man. We don't look to these non-Muslims to be men. We have the best example, who's Muhammad bin Abdullah. Muhammad bin Abdullah was the greatest example of men, alayhi salatu wasalam. And all the narrations that come, he was the best example. We don't need no example after example of Muhammad. It's Muhammad bin Abdullah, alayhi salatu wasalam. That was the true man. And we talked about the hadith of when Aisha smacked the plate out of the servant. We talked about that last week. The hadith is in the Bukhari. That we know that one of his wives sent the plate of food over to what? To the Messenger of Allah, Aisha. I discussed this last week, didn't I? Then we mentioned and say that Aisha smacked the plate out of her hand and broke on the ground out of her severe jealousy she had for him. Smacked the plate. Us as men these days, what would we have said? We would start calling out of her name. You stupid broad, you make me sick. You just a woman that's incomplete in your mind. How could you do that? Calling her out of her name. Calling her all these different types of names that'll break her self-esteem down. What is wrong with you? What made you do that? Man, A'udhu Billah. What's wrong with you? The Messenger of Allah, what did he do? What did he do? What did he do, everyone? It says in the hadith, the Messenger of Allah ignored it. He picked the pieces off the ground and said, Gharat ummukum. He says, this is from the jealousy of your mother. He picked it up. He said, meaning that I know she did that because she loves me. She loves me. And I know that the Messenger of Allah know that he was the greatest in humanity. Who would not have jealousy for the greatest man of humanity? The greatest man of humanity, who wouldn't have jealousy for him? She said, I know she loves me. She did that out of love because she loves me. He said, Gharat ummukum. The mother has jealousy. Did the Messenger of Allah call her the B word? The Messenger of Allah call her out of her name? The Messenger of Allah use profanity? The Messenger of Allah raise his voice? The Messenger of Allah strike her? The mentally abuse her? physically abuse her? Did he do any of that? What did he do? Picked up the pieces and said, your mother, meaning the mother of the believers, she has jealousy. She loves me. I know she did that out of love. Picked it up, took the plate, sent the plate that was fixed back to the other wife's house, to the plate that was fixed. And he kept the one that was broke. Did he make a big deal out of it? Did he cause drama? Our men these days would have called the other wife's house. Yo, I don't know why she did that. What's wrong? This is the reason why I don't want to be married to her. And he's saying that to the second wife while she's sucking that all in. That's what we would have done, right, in these days. Made a big drama out of it, made a big extravaganza out of it, causing all this drama, all this unnecessary nonsense. Messenger of Allah alleviated all that, picked up the plate, and just said, your mother's jealous. Khalas, keep it moving. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear, everyone? G. طيب. So based upon these narrations, ya ma'ashal ikhwa. So that crookedness is what? Is gentleness. Is the gentleness, and also what the Messenger of Allah described in the other narrations, talking about how the woman also likewise has her religion being incomplete in the matter where she has a cycle, immense, where she spends those days and nights, and even even as far as the religion, as far as those two testimonies of the man two testimonies of a woman is equivalent to one testimony of a man. If you hear these narrations, brothers, that is even more of an emphasis to put and show what? That a woman deserves even more to have more what? To have more what? Patience. Not to be used as an opposite so you can take advantage. But in order to what? To be more gentle and kind. Just as you would want to be gentle and kind to your own mother. And you wouldn't want a man to mistreat your own mother or your own daughter or your own sister or what have you. So that gentleness now, the message of Allah, if you notice at the end of the narration, what does it say, everyone? If you go to try to straighten it out, you'll break it. So based upon what we described as that type of crookedness, that crookedness suits her nature. If you try to now remove that, what will you want? You'll break it. You'll break her. So that is not a reason for you now to what? To divorce her or treat her or mistreat her or what have you. Rather, like we said, it is utilized as a manner for will aid you as a man. Because that is what men, if their sound way of thinking has been rectified, of course, then we know that men love femininity, they love gentleness. And they love that a woman adorn herself for him, and also likewise shows that softness and gentleness that men need. How long have we been talking for an hour? We got about 10 more minutes. We'll stop here, inshallah. 58 minutes. Okay. You said we go for 58? Jade. All those narrations are going to come. طيب. We also know the narration I discussed last week. We said the hadith of Aisha, that we said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned this, which is a tremendous narration. Where he said that I want everyone to listen to this. أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا وخيارهم خيارهم لنسائهم. The most complete of believers as far as in their faith is the best of them in character, the best of them in etiquette, the best of them in manners. The most complete of believers in their faith is the most excellent of them in their khuluq, in their etiquette, in their manners, in their treatment. And the best of you, meaning the best of you men, is the best of you to their women. So that's a tremendous hadith for the most complete of you, of the most complete of the believers in their faith is the most excellent of them in their character. Most excellent of them in their character. So this is Islam to tell us to what everyone that we need to set out to what perfecting our what everyone, our character and our etiquette and our manners of how we treat people. Because that is the most complete of believers in their faith. And the most best of you is the best of you to your women. We have an example of that for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, what time was Maghrib coming? Was it coming like 4:30? I think it comes at about 4:30. I'm about to stop. If it comes at about 4:30, then we'll stop. 4:51, about 4:50. So it's probably about 2 minutes. Okay, 4:51. We're about to stop in a couple of minutes. So we have an example of that. When we know that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, matter of fact, we'll talk about, and I'll read with Sheikh Salih Fawzan and we'll stop here. I don't want to keep prolonging. I don't like to prolong the lesson too long. I'll read what Sheikh Salih Fawzan gives advice in this narration. Listen to what Sheikh Salih Fawzan mentions. It says, he says, اقبلوا وصية الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم في النساء استوصوا بهن خيرا يعني لا تعاملوهن إلا بما فيه الخير ومن ضمن ذلك النهي عن الإساءة إلى النساء والمراد بالنساء هنا الزوجات. When the Messenger of Allah said, accept the advice of the Messenger of Allah as it pertains to women, he said, treat them good, meaning treat them kindly, meaning don't deal with them in a manner that does not have any good. And from that is the prohibition of unfairly treating them or treating them in a harsh, unfair, and unjustful manner. And what is intended by women here is not girlfriends, is women's or person's spouse or their wives. Because the Messenger of Allah, then he gave the reason why. He says, it's as if in this hadith here that we're speaking about, it's as if the Messenger said that there is going to be something that you might detest from your spouse. It's going to happen. And that should not be the reason or would be an incentive for you to now start to harm her or mistreat her or harm her. Because a woman, something has to emanate from her of what you might what? Detest. Because that is her natural disposition. Al-Jibilla or Jibilliyatan. Because that is what she's been what? Created upon. Because the Messenger of Allah said about the rib, as we know. وبين النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في هذا كيف أن الله خلق حواء من آدم. How he created Hawa from Adam. He created her from that rib, as we know. And Allah Ta'ala is able to do all things, as we know. Just as man was also created from water. He's created from clay. وخلق آدم من تراب. He says, كما أنه يخلق البشر من الماء. Allah created mankind from water, and He created Adam from dirt, from turab. فإنه يخلق المرأة من الضلع. He created the woman from the rib. والله على كل, and Allah is able to do all things. Nothing renders Allah incapable. Nothing in the heavens and the earth. And the most crooked part of it is the upper part of the rib, as we know. Listen to what Sheikh Salih Fawzan goes on to say. He says, وَدَلَّ عَلَىٰ أَنَّ الْمَرْأَ فِيهَا عِوَجٍ. She has that crookedness. We just explained that. وَهَذَا تَشْبِيهٌ مِّنْهُ بِأَنَّ الْمَرْأَ لَا بُدَّ أَن يَكُونَ فِيهَا شَيْءٌ مِمَّا يَكْرَهُهُ الزَّوْجُ. We already said that. وَهَذِهِ جِبِلَّةٌ فِيهَا كما أن الضلع أعوج كذلك المرأة يكون فيها عوج. فإن ذهبت, if you try to straighten it out, if you try to straighten it out, you will what? Break her. And we know that the most effective manner of what will break a woman down, especially, is divorcing her. Because we know that is a form of what? That has a tremendous impact upon a woman. Especially if her husband was a good husband and her husband was a good man. That is going to have more of an impact. We're not talking about men that's a little bit neglective and a neglection that goes truly beyond the bounds, because she might be happy that she's getting away from you. We're talking about the opposite of a man who's what? Responsible. And to break her down, knowing that you're a good person, that will have a tremendous impact upon a woman. That will have a tremendous impact. And that will be a form of breaking her. And that breaking her is what? That breaking her is divorcing her. The next hadith that we want to discuss, that hadith is tremendous, and we'll discuss that next class. It will suffice with what we mentioned here. And we'll just discuss the next hadith, because there's some narrations that I wanted to mention in this class, but it's a little bit too lengthy. We'll suffice with this. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Is there any questions about the lessons, anyone?